Hi guys, today I'm going to be showing you some easy basic techniques to get a flawless base. So I'm going to walk you through how I do my foundation, my concealer, and my powder to get kind of a flawless base. And then this is the finished look with the rest of my makeup on. So if you want to see all my tips and tricks for getting an easy flawless base, then please keep on watching. The first step to a flawless base is definitely priming. So I already have my skin moisturized and my SPF on, which are both very important. But especially if you have oily skin, you want to make sure you're not using a moisturizer that's too greasy and oily, because no matter what you do, what makeup you put on, it's just going to kind of make your face greasy throughout the day. So make sure you're using a moisturizer that works good for your skin type and does hydrate your skin, but isn't going to make you too greasy or too dry, because the makeup just won't sit well on top of your skincare that way. But like I said, first step is primer, and today I'm going to use the Backlight priming filter from Becca, and this is my favorite primer, but some other good options depending on your skin type. My favorite from the drugstore is the NYX Angel Veil. I also think if you have drier skin, the Hourglass Veil primer is probably really nice. It's a little too greasy for my oily skin, so like I said, much better if you're dry. But anyway, just find a primer that kind of caters to your skin's needs. This one, I'm not sure. I think it does actually help my makeup last longer, but what it really does is provides a nice like color for my makeup to sit on top of. So I'm just going to shake it up. I haven't used this in a while, and do one kind of generous pump there, and then apply it all over the face. So I think this just gives like a nice reflective kind of base to the skin, but nothing too greasy. I think this kind of makes me look lit from within, but not oily. So that's the primer I'm going to use. And you want to make sure you're kind of patting your primer in and don't swipe over your face too much, especially if you're using a silicone-based primer like something like the Benefit Professional or that NYX Angel Veil that I mentioned that are more silicone-y. Those ones can tend to pill up, especially if they don't agree with your moisturizer or your foundation. So be careful. You don't really want to rub them in too much. Just kind of a once-over over your face is plenty. Because you don't want to have all those pills start to come forward on your skin. It just turns into a hot mess. And then my next secret to a flawless base is definitely a damp beauty blender. If you're on a budget, I think the little triangular makeup sponges from the drugstore are fine. And I definitely wouldn't waste your money on any like beauty blender imposters. Like I've spent money like on the $5 ones, the Real Techniques ones, all the other ones from the drugstore, and they're just not the same. It's just, to me, kind of a waste of money. If you get one of these and you wash it after every use, they do last for several months, and I think you really do get your money's worth, because nothing applies your foundation this flawlessly. But for years, I just used a plain cosmetic sponge from the drugstore, like I said, so if you're balling on a budget, go for that. But definitely a sponge. To me, it's a little harder to get a high quality brush that's going to buff in your foundation very well, especially if you're looking for a drugstore option. A lot of them just shed brush hairs all over your face and just make it even harder to get that flawless base. So I'm going to use my damp beauty blender, and then I'm going to use my Holy Grail foundation, which is the L'Oreal True Match. And this is my Holy Grail for many reasons, because it has buildable coverage, so I can get a medium and all the way up to a high coverage look out of this. It also has SPF 17 in it, which is really nice for that added coverage for day-to-day wear. And this foundation just is one that really, really agrees with my skin. I don't know what it is about it, it just works for my skin really well. So if you have a foundation that works for your skin really well, just use that and apply with the damp beauty blender and you'll get a flawless finish. So I'm just going to shake this up a little bit. And how I do this is I used to pour it onto the back of my hand, but with a sponge you can just kind of tip it over on there, shake a little bit on, and then just use that dollop. So I'm gonna do 2 dollops, this first one for the T-zone and the second one is gonna be for the cheeks. And I'm just going to blend this in. So now I'm going to take another dollop and do that on my cheeks, and then I'll probably go in with another layer just all over to add a little more coverage, because I'm going for kind of a full coverage, super flawless look today. But I really like this foundation because, like I said before, it is super buildable, so you can just kind of keep adding on layers and it won't look cakey or kind of bunch up in certain places weirdly on your skin. And this formula just really agrees with my oily skin and lasts super long throughout the day. So if you have oily skin and you're looking for a foundation that's not going to be too drying and look cakey throughout the day but is still going to help keep your oil at bay, I really recommend the L'Oreal True Match. And the other important thing is with a damp sponge, you just want to be tapping up and down, not rubbing, because that will just kind of move the foundation around on your skin, not really press it in. So pressing it in will really help you get that high coverage that you want and also help it blend really easily without just like wiping it off of your face. So that's the first coat all over, and then I'm just gonna take a little bit more foundation, once again on my damp beauty blender, and just add this all over because, like I said, really want full coverage today. And a couple more tips just to get that super flawless base is to make sure that you're blending it down onto your neck so that you don't have that line that makes it look like you're wearing a mask. So definitely take your foundation down there and also make sure it's going up onto your ears and into your hairline. Like I said, you just do not want to have that mask look where there's like a defined line where it's like super white under your scalp and under your jaw. You want to make sure it looks really flawless and natural. So that's it for my foundation. I like this amount of coverage, and because this foundation is actually, in my opinion, like the perfect shade for me, it matches my neck and the rest of my skin perfectly. I don't need to do any highlighting and concealing. I just need to conceal under my eyes. So I'm going to use the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Dark Circle Eraser. This is just the best concealer ever. This is the #1 I would recommend for all skin types, all ages, everyone. This is the best under eye concealer. So I'm gonna take this just under the eyes, and I'm gonna do this right along where I have my dark circles here, and then also down in like a little V-shaped here. I don't wanna get too crazy and draw a huge triangle. I just wanna make sure I'm bringing it down and up to kind of highlight the face. And then if you are using a foundation that's slightly too dark for you or too light, whatever, and you wanna even it out with concealer, take some on the middle of your forehead, on your chin, and down your nose to kind of even that out, and that will kind of make the look go together. But I'm happy with the color of this foundation, so I'm not going to do all that today. That's just too complicated. And now to blend this concealer in, I always blend this in with my finger, and this concealer is just super easy to blend, so you don't need to mess around with a sponge or a brush or anything, just use your finger. So I'm going to start in the inner corner and kind of bring it up into the corner here where there's definitely some darkness. Everyone has darkness there. And then I'm going to kind of go back and forth, but the key here with blending in concealer to get a flawless full coverage under your dark circles is to blend inward. So if you tap outward, then you're just going to move the product out and up, which is nice because it will give you like a highlighted lift to your cheekbone, but you're kind of like erasing all the coverage and kind of moving it away from that darkness that you really want to cover. So I tend to concentrate on moving inward with my tapping motions, and I just lightly tap with my middle finger here to kind of blend it in. And the warmth from your finger will really blend the concealer in and take care of any like harsh lines around it and really make it look buffed out and natural. And then at the end, if there's any more like edges here that aren't completely blended into the foundation, we'll go back in with the Beauty Blender to perfect those. But like I said, just light tapping, again, not rubbing because that will just take the product away. We just want to tap it into the skin. So I have the concealer tapped in mostly with my finger, so I'm just going to take the Beauty Blender and blend out the rest of the edges for a really flawless finish. And just another quick thing about concealer, definitely go a shade lighter than your foundation if you're worried about matching it perfectly. You definitely don't want it to be too dark. If it's the exact same shade as your foundation, that works too. That will give you just a really even base. But just going one shade lighter will kind of brighten up your under eye and bring an extra dimension to the face. So if you're worried about your concealer being too dark, always kind of aim to be too light because you can darken up the face with bronzer or your foundation, but you can't lighten up your concealer once it's too dark. And also, I also look for a more pinky concealer for under the eye, because if you do something super yellow, then you tend to look more sickly. And I don't really like pinky tones on my face, but this is kind of a fair concealer, and it's just ever so pinky in tone, and that first of all, the pinky peachy tones kind of cancel out dark purple under eye circles a little better, but also, like I said, yellow can just really make you look a little bit too sickly, especially if you're more fair. If you're really olivey undertone or really tan, then the yellow will be okay on you, but if you're fairer, definitely go for a pinky undertone because you don't want to look sickly. Okay, and now that that concealer is blended out flawlessly, we're going to set it, and I'm going to take my Laura Mercier translucent powder to do that, and I'm going to use it on the corner of my damp beauty blender. But if you're balling on a budget, definitely check out the e.l.f. under eye setting powder. It comes in a little square pot that's super tiny, and it's like really cheap, like $1 or $2. And that with just any kind of fluffy brush, you can dust that on, and that is wonderful. I've used that forever to set my under eye concealer, but since I have this Laura Mercier now, this is just what I'm using. So I dumped some into the lid, and then I'm picking that up with the corner of my beauty blender, and I'm just going to lightly tap that on. So I'm not like taking whole tons on here and baking under my eye and like putting on tons of thick powder. I'm just taking a little bit and pressing it in just to set it. I'm not trying to like look super cakey with the powder or anything, just enough to kind of set it down. And if this is just like a little bit too much for you, like I said, just take a fluffy brush and any kind of translucent setting powder and dust that under the eye. And definitely make sure that you've also done your eye makeup prior to your base makeup. There's nothing worse than doing all this hard work to, you know, get your under eye concealer perfect and set it and do all your base makeup, and then, you know, you use some eyeshadow and it drops a bunch of powder fallout onto your cheek, and then it just ruins all the hard work you did. And now that my under eye concealer is set, I'm going to move on to the #1 secret that I have for a flawless base. And I think I've mentioned this in a video before, but it's to use the Bare Minerals Bisque concealer and the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. So this is a powder concealer, and then this is a really dense face brush. So what I do with this is I take this anywhere where I'm having a breakout and anywhere where I'm super oily. So for me, I put this on my nose, right between my eyes here, and I tend to kind of do it all over the chin because I tend to just always kind of have breakouts in this area. And I also get creasing here in my smile lines, and I just also have a lot of acne, scarring, and pigmentation in that area. So those are the areas where I really want that extra coverage. So I take my bisque, I put a little bit into the lid like so, and then I just really load up this Expert Face Brush with the bisque. So I'm really kind of getting all of that in there really good, like so. And then I'm just pressing this onto all the areas that I just mentioned. So this really helps, especially with the nose area. If you're an oily skin person, then this really kind of keeps the oil at bay and keeps your makeup looking flawless longer. And it doesn't look too cakey because this is a mineral product. It's not like super cakey powder. It just kind of blends flawlessly into the skin, as you can probably tell. But it definitely does set it and give a powder effect, but I just think it looks flawless. Every time I do this, I get compliments on my skin. So I'm just going to take a little bit more and add that down here where I have some blemishes around my mouth and my chin area. And I kind of end up just dabbing a bunch of this all over my chin because that's another area where I tend to get really red and greasy throughout the day. And using a dense brush with this kind of powder concealer also makes it like sure that you don't waste a bunch of product. Like if you're taking this on a fluffy brush and just trying to, you know, cover something, you're not going to cover anything. The powder's just going to kind of disappear. This dense brush really just presses it into wherever you need it and ensures that you like get the most out of it and get some high coverage just in the places you need, because you don't want to be putting tons of this all over your entire face. So I just noticed I have one more really visible blemish here, so I'm just going to take a little more on this side of my face. I had a really bad breakout on this side of my face, I don't know why. Okay, so that's it for powder concealer. Now to powder the whole face, I'm going to use my favorite setting powder of all time, and that is the MAC Mineralize Skin Finish. And I have the shade Light Plus, which is a little yellowy, which is really nice for all over the face to kind of combat any redness. It really helps you look flawless when you have a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to take that on this dense IT Cosmetics Kabuki brush, because this can also kind of press it into the skin. But I'm also going to use this kind of in buffing motions just to make sure that everything's kind of blended in and my whole base is flawlessly blended together. So I'm just going to take this on this brush and start by dabbing just to set anywhere that hasn't had powder on it yet. So I'm just kind of dabbing this in quickly all around to make sure that it's blended. I'm not rubbing too hard, just kind of quickly rubbing around so that nothing moves, everything's just nice and set and powdered down. And then of course, under the chin, and make sure you're blending it into the hairline. Okay, so that's it for the flawless base and all the proper techniques that I use to get this flawless finish to my foundation, concealer, and powder. And in the next clip, you're gonna see me with the rest of my makeup done. I have already added my brows and kind of finished off my eye makeup, but I'm gonna do a second video coming on Thursday, which is going to be a how to apply bronzer properly and use bronzer when you have fair skin, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be the continuation of this tutorial. But this is it for the base products. I hope you enjoyed this video, and in the next clip, you're going to see me with the rest of the face done so you can see the complete look. After applying that flawless base, this is how the rest of my makeup came out, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing all my tips and tricks to getting a flawless, even base. These are kind of the proper techniques that I use to kind of get this even look that's gonna last throughout the day, keep my oil at bay, and really just make my skin look flawless. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for Wednesday's video when I'm gonna walk you through using bronzer on fair skin, and it's the same look, so you'll recognize this in the next video. But I upload every Monday and Thursday, so please subscribe so you don't miss another video, and thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.